Alright guys, what's going on? Brian back here with another recap video, this time recapping this week's episode of NXT. Of course, coming off the heels of this past Sunday's NXT TakeOver 31. A lot of things happened there. Finn Balor retained his NXT title in a very hard-fought battle against Kyle O'Reilly. That neither man came out unscathed. We saw the return of Ember Moon. We heard from Toni Storm, who said she's coming back to NXT. We saw Io Shirai retain the NXT Women's title over Candice LeRae. Damian Priest retained his NXT North American Championship over Johnny Gargano, plus a bunch of other stuff. So a lot to get into as far as this week's episode of NXT. We saw in the opening match, it was Tommaso Ciampa picking up a win over Kushida via disqualification because Velveteen Dream, who has been in a rivalry with Kushida and who had lost to Kushida on Sunday, went to go after Kushida. However, Kushida, who had Tommaso Ciampa locked in the hoverboard lock, when the Velveteen Dream came down, he got on the top turnbuckle and jumped off. It was going to hit Kushida, but wound up hitting Ciampa, and that's what caused the disqualification victory for Ciampa. Then we heard from Ember Moon, who talked about how she was out for 14 months, and now she's back in NXT, and she wants the gold of the NXT Women's title. She would be interrupted by Io Shirai, who would be interrupted by Rhea Ripley, who would then be attacked by Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. Ember Moon would help Rhea out. This would lead to General Manager William Regal coming out and announcing that the main event of this week's episode is going to be a tag team match with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez taking on Rhea Ripley and the returning Ember Moon. So that was it for that. Then we had a Drake Maverick and Killian Dane segment from earlier in the day where, same thing like we've been seeing between these two, Dane doesn't want to be a team with Drake Maverick. Maverick wants to be a team with Killian Dane, and he thinks that they would work well together. And then when Killian Dane walked away, Maverick said that they had team music, and you wait to see the team music because they were going to be involved in a tag team match a little bit later on. So that was it for that. Then we heard from Io Shirai, who basically made it clear that Rhea Ripley's not her problem, Ember Moon's not her problem. The NXT Women's title is her problem and what she worries about more. So that was pretty much it for that. Then we had an Undisputed Era promo where they talked about Ridge Holland and what happened with Ridge and Adam Cole on Sunday when Ridge made an appearance with Adam Cole draped over his shoulder, and he wound up throwing him over the barricade in front of Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly at the end of Sunday's TakeOver main event. Then we had in tag team action, Killian Dane and Drake Maverick picking up the victory over Everrise. Was it Everrise? Yeah. Basically, Maverick had what the kind of music you would probably hear in like a kids theme song or an ice cream truck play. Something that was like there was like something kiddish, and Dane was like, cut that music off. No, we're not doing that. So Dane near the end of the match, Killian Dane took out one of the members of Everrise, then powerbombed Drake Maverick on top of him, on top of the guy, and then Maverick made the pin and pinned the guy, one of the members of Everrise, 1, 2, 3. Afterwards, Maverick was celebrating. Dane was like looking at him in like disgust. wound up knocking him out with a punch, then left the ring, and then kind of had second thoughts and came back and basically put Maverick over his shoulders and carried him away. I like this dynamic. I don't know where they're going with that. It kind of reminds me of how Kane and Daniel Bryan were when they first formed a tag team. I don't know if we're going to see that same thing, but you never know. So that was pretty much it for that. There was a Toni Storm vignette where she talked about what her intentions are as far as coming back to NXT and how people have forgotten what she has what she's done and forgotten about her, and that she's going to make it. No one's going to forget about her, and that's pretty much it for that. Then we had the Garganos vignette where they were walking down on a sidewalk, where they were obviously they were walking their dog, and they started talking about their matches on Sunday where they both lost. They said that they deserve rematches. Gargano said, or Johnny Gargano said about that he has a plan. Then when they got to their house, they saw a big TV in a box on their front porch from Indy Hartwell, and they brought it into the house. And then a little bit later on, so we get rid of that segment, Johnny Gargano would be in their room watching the TV. He would call Candice LeRae. He would call Candice back into the room, and he would basically say that, you know what, Indy Hartwell, she actually saved you a couple of times during that Battle Royal, the Women's Battle Royal, and that was about it. So what's going to happen with that, with them and Indy Hartwell, we'll have to wait and see. So next up, we had Austin Theory defeating Leon Ruff in a bit of a warm-up match. Then Austin Theory would issue an open challenge. Dexter Lumis would answer, and this would lead to another match being made for right then and there. And Dexter Lumis would pick up the win. And my only complaint is that with this is that the commentators were like saying that they had not seen Dexter Lumis in 10 weeks, but yet he was on, I believe it was last week or the week before, in a backstage segment with Cameron Grimes. So I don't know if they meant that they hadn't seen him in the ring for 10 weeks because he's been out with an injury. But it kind of doesn't make any sense if he was on in a backstage segment. I think it was last week or the week before. So that was pretty much it for that. After Dexter Lumis won, Cameron Grimes would come out and hit the cave-in on Lumis and then leave. Then we had a backstage interview with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, talking about their upcoming tag match, talking about Ember Moon's return to NXT. Then we had a recap of the NXT Championship match from Sunday at TakeOver 31, where Finn Balor, as I mentioned, retained the NXT title over Kyle O'Reilly. They both suffered injuries. Balor suffered a broken jaw in 2 places, I believe it said. And then Kyle O'Reilly suffered some injuries that was going to keep him from television for a couple of weeks. So that was pretty much it for that. Then we heard from Ridge Holland, who from earlier in the day, he showed up in a Mercedes. They asked him, why did he attack Adam Cole? He basically said that last week he didn't have a Mercedes. This week he does. And to thank Adam Cole for that, whatever that means. Then we heard from Damian Priest, the NXT North American Champion, who basically made it clear that if anybody wants a shot, to step up. Then we saw Ridge Holland in action against Danny Burch. Ridgewood picked up the win over Danny Burch. They kind of teased a little bit that somebody actually paid Ridge Holland to take out Adam Cole on Sunday, because they kind of like those subtle hints was like, one was like that maybe somebody paid him. They kind of like said on commentary that somebody like paid him to take out Adam Cole. And also when he said about with the Mercedes, last week he didn't have one, this week he does, and to thank Adam Cole. So obviously it looks like somebody paid Ridge Holland to take out Adam Cole. But Ridge Holland picked up the win over Danny Burch. He continued to beat down on Danny. Here comes Oney Lorcan, Danny's tag team partner. Him and Ridge would go at it. Then Oney would hit a dive on the outside of the ring, or to the outside of the ring onto Ridge, and Ridge looked like his I think his left or right knee buckled, and he fell to the ground. He was clutching his knee, and they wound up taking him out on a stretcher. So hopefully everything is okay. Hopefully nothing is seriously, he's not seriously injured. But that was pretty much it for that. Then we had another Thatcher Thatch Can session with Timothy Thatcher, saying that he's not going to let any life grind him until he quits. Then we had Shotzi Blackheart, who's going to be hosting NXT Halloween Havoc coming up on October 28th. She was in action. She defeated Xia Li. Really impressed with, as a fan, I've been really impressed with Shotzi. I think she has proven herself. She's really working her, to get her, name and status in the NXT Women's Division and moving up in the ranks. Specifically with her match against Io Shirai a few weeks ago, she did a really good job in that one. So that was it for that. She defeated Xia Li on tonight's episode. Then Xia Li would get confronted or get a visit from Boa, who is one of the I think it's Japanese or Chinese standouts for NXT. One of their NXT prospects. He gave her a letter or an envelope with some kind of letter in it, and they both left together. So what that was all about, we'll have to wait and see. Then in the main event, it was Ember Moon and Rhea Ripley defeating Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez in tag team action. Ember picked up the win with the Eclipse. So that was pretty much it for this week's episode of NXT. So with that being said, this week's episode I thought was pretty solid. Pretty okay episode. So yeah, for those of you that watched tonight's episode of NXT, let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments below. As always, this has been my NXT recap for this week's episode. As always, I am Brian, and thank you for watching.